mist of Kiboko Wildlife Reserve, nestled between Kenya's rugged southern escarpments and the dry edge of Amboseli, the land hummed with life. A place where every whisper of wind tells a story. But that morning, the story carried. A scream, a baby elephant, alone, terrified and crying out for help. Peter's enamel coffee mug dropped from his hands before it could even hit the porch. He was already running, his heart hammering in his chest. That scream wasn't just distress, it was panic. And in the wild, panic never comes alone. "Rex, with me!" he shouted. The German Shepherd was already moving, darting from the tent flap. Like a shadow, every muscle rippling beneath his black and tan coat. No command, no hesitation, he was hunting. Together they surged through the brittle grass toward the northeast rise where the desperate cry had come from. The radio at Peter's belt crackled, then fell silent. No time to fix it, no time to wait. Only the dry wind and something else, the low growl of predators. As they crested the ridge and slid down into the dry riverbed, Peter's boots ground to a halt. There, in the open dirt below, stood the baby elephant, no older than 6 months, trembling with fear, its trunk curled close to its body, ears flicking with distress. It tried to step back, but there was nowhere to go. Surrounding it were 4 lions, young, strong males, unburdened by age, stalking their prey with slow, deliberate hunger. The lions didn't rush the kill. They toyed with their prey, feeding off its fear. Peter's eyes darted across the horizon. No signs of the herd, no warning cries, just cracked soil and the heavy tension of impending death. He fumbled for the radio again. "Base, this is Peter at Northeast Quadrant. Baby elephant surrounded by lions. No herd in sight. I need immediate backup." Static answered, no reply, and then one of the lions crouched, preparing to strike. "Rex, no!" But the dog was already moving, charging toward the lions, a blur of determination. No leash, no command, just instinct. He launched at the circle from the side, with a growl so deep it silenced the wind. The lions flinched. One sprang sideways in surprise, but Rex didn't attack. He didn't bite. He simply owned the space between the calf and the lions, circling it once like a soldier securing a perimeter. His body tensed, teeth bared. He dared the lions to come closer. They hesitated. Peter had seen it before. Lions confused by a threat they couldn't classify. Rex wasn't prey. He wasn't a predator. He was something else entirely. Unrelenting. Unfazed. Peter sprang from the brush, running into the clearing, waving his arms, shouting, "Back! Get out of here!" 2 of the lions growled, but didn't advance. The third backed off completely. The last, larger than the others, held Rex's gaze for a few more seconds before slinking into the brush, disappearing into the tall grass. It was over. Peter dropped to his knees, breath ragged, sweat soaking his shirt. The elephant calf trembled, giving a weak trumpet and pressing its flank against Rex. The dog didn't move, didn't whimper. He simply stood there, guarding. Peter whispered, "You've lost your mind, you brave, brilliant mutt," but inside, a storm brewed. A calf that young wouldn't wander off from its herd. No warning, no trumpet cries. The lions hadn't chased. It was like they were waiting, and Rex had responded faster than Peter's own instincts. Something was deeply wrong in Kiboko, and this was just the beginning. The sun climbed higher over the reserve, but the tension in the air remained thick. The calf had stopped crying, though it still pressed close to Rex's side, trembling. Peter stood slowly, his boots crunching on the dry grass. He scanned the tree line. The lions had disappeared, but Peter knew better than to assume they were gone for good. There was something off about the encounter. The lions hadn't acted like predators on the hunt. They had been too slow, too deliberate, as though waiting for the calf to be exactly where it was. Peter crouched beside Rex again, gently placing a hand on the shepherd's back. "You all right?" Peter asked softly. Rex gave a low chuff. his eyes locked on the direction the lions had disappeared into. The dog wasn't finished. He was still on edge. Peter felt the same unease gnawing at him. This wasn't over. The baby elephant took a few weak, confused steps, letting out a soft trumpet. Its ears twitched, but not in aggression. It was aimlessly trying to orient itself. Peter examined the calf. Scratches, bruising, but nothing broken. It had likely been running from something bigger than lions. Peter grabbed the radio again, trying a different frequency. Static, then a click. Finally a voice. "Peter, you there? We heard your earlier call. It broke up." "I've got a calf," Peter said quickly. "About 6 months old, completely alone. Was just cornered by 4 lions near the northeast ridge. No herd in sight. I need eyes in the air now." There was a pause, then, "We've got a drone team in Sector 3. I'll redirect them your way. ETA, 8 minutes. Peter clicked off the radio. He looked at Rex, then at the calf. "Let's figure out how this happened." The trail leading into the clearing was fresh. Peter could see faint elephant tracks, shallow, light. The herd wasn't moving quickly, and they certainly weren't following their usual migration route. They had cut across unfamiliar terrain. Peter knew something wasn't right. Elephants in Kiboko didn't stray from their ancestral paths. They didn't leave calves behind. He motioned for Rex to stay with the calf and walked carefully along the trail. After a few meters, Rex let out a low, urgent bark behind him. Peter turned. The calf had started moving again, this time more purposefully. It was heading east, its ears twitching, nose raised, sniffing the air like it recognized something. They followed the calf for over 20 minutes, through thickets, across dry ridges until the path split. That's when they found the first sign. Blood, not much but fresh, a smear on a tree trunk, low enough to have come from another elephant's leg. Drag marks led away from the trail, and the smell, a sharp metallic tang, made Peter's gut twist. Something had happened here, something violent. He followed the trail another 100 yards, then stopped. Below, hidden by collapsed foliage, lay the carcass of a young cow. It was the calf's mother. She hadn't just died, she'd been taken down. And it hadn't been natural. Peter crouched beside her, examining the clean cuts across her body. Too clean. Not claw marks, not teeth. Blades, poachers, he muttered under his breath, but this wasn't about ivory. The mother still had her tusks, cracked and chipped from the struggle. This was about chaos, about splintering the herd, driving them apart. And somewhere in the panic, the calf had been separated. Rex growled softly from above. Peter looked up to see the dog staring into the trees, fur bristling. That's when Peter heard it, a faint rustle of movement. Not lions, not elephants. Footsteps. Human ones moving quickly, trying not to be heard. He ducked and signaled for Rex to stay low. 2 men emerged from the brush, dirty brown shirts, rifles slung across their backs, machetes at their hips. Peter stayed still, hidden behind the ridgeline. They walked past the carcass without a second glance, heading in the direction the calf had come from. They were tracking it. They hadn't failed. They were just late. Peter's mind raced. They had flushed the herd, split the calf from its mother, killed her when she resisted, and now they were coming back to finish what they started. Rex didn't growl again. He didn't move. He simply looked back at Peter, steady and focused. When things were about to go bad, Peter gritted his teeth. "We've got to move." He stood and gently lifted the calf's front legs, guiding it to its feet. "Come on, little one. They're not getting you." The calf obeyed as if it understood. Rex circled behind it, nudging it forward. They didn't go back to camp. Not yet. Peter took them toward the northern research outpost. Safer, more isolated, with fencing and drone coverage. Every step felt like a countdown, but one thought looped in his head. This wasn't just about a lost calf. It was about someone sending a message, and the only thing standing between that message and another dead elephant was a German shepherd who refused to back down. By the time Peter, Rex and the calf reached the northern outpost, the sun had climbed high enough to turn the plains into a shimmering oven. The calf stumbled, exhausted and dehydrated, but it never stopped. Rex stayed glued to its side, guiding it with subtle nudges and low, reassuring sounds. They barely crossed through the steel gates when Dr. Nia Ruto rushed out, her mouth falling open at the sight. "Is that a calf alone?" she gasped. Peter nodded, grimly. "Mother's dead. Poachers. 2 armed men still on its trail." Nia didn't waste a second. She waved over a veterinary assistant and barked orders. Water, sedatives, extra eyes on the monitors. They ushered the calf inside, into the shaded holding pen, while Peter stood watch beside Rex, his eyes still fixed on the horizon. Minutes later, a call came in from the drone operator stationed at the observation hut. "Movement south of your perimeter, 2 individuals moving fast, armed." Peter didn't hesitate. He grabbed his rifle, field radio, and turned to Rex. The shepherd was already standing, muscles taut, ears flicking with every distant sound. "We're going back out," Peter said. "They don't get to just walk away from this." Nia grabbed his arm before he could leave. "You're taking the dog." Peter gave her a look that needed no words. Then he was gone, sprinting back into the brush with Rex at his heel. The sun blazed above, but inside Peter's chest, a cold, calculated burn was growing. He wasn't just protecting wildlife anymore. He was chasing down men who thought they could turn a sanctuary into a slaughterhouse. They moved quickly, flanking the ravine from the north. Peter knew the terrain well. Rex was practically silent. As they advanced, then a head movement, 2 figures cutting across a ridge, heads low, weapons strapped. Peter dropped to a knee behind a boulder, rifle raised, scope on his eye. He didn't take the shot. He just watched. The poachers were scanning the area, frustrated, confused. They whispered in sharp bursts, motioning toward the last place the calf had been. They didn't know they had already been outmaneuvered. Then it happened. A branch snapped under Peter's boot. It wasn't loud, but it was enough. One of the poachers froze, looking directly at the rocks. Peter ducked. "Rex, go!" The dog launched from his side like lightning, not toward the men, but around them. He darted through the grass with uncanny speed, drawing the poacher's attention away from Peter's position. The poachers yelled, one firing blindly in Rex's direction, but the shepherd was too fast, weaving like a ghost through the tall grass. Peter moved. He broke cover, shouted, "Drop it!" at the top of his lungs. One poacher turned his rifle, but he was too slow. A warning shot cracked through the air. The second man dropped his weapon and bolted, but Rex was already in pursuit. The shepherd closed the gap like a bullet. He didn't bite. Not yet. He cut the runner off and stood, growling, forcing him back toward Peter's line of sight. Within seconds, both men were disarmed, hands raised, staring at a soldier and a dog who had no intention of letting them vanish. Peter radioed the outpost. "We've got them. Send transport. Bring cuffs." By the time backup arrived, Rex had returned to Peter's side, still breathing steady, still watching. One of the junior rangers stared at him with wide eyes. That dog just heard a man with a rifle. Peter nodded. He's not just a dog. At the outpost, the calf rested, finally asleep under a misting fan. Nia smiled when she saw Peter and Rex return. "They'll try to call him a hero," she said, motioning to Rex. Peter replied, kneeling beside his companion. "I don't think he did it for recognition. He did it because someone had to, and he was the only one who didn't freeze." Outside the fence, the wind shifted. Somewhere beyond the hills, the rest of the herd might still be out there, moving silently through the heat. But inside Koboko Reserve, one calf was alive because a dog refused to back down, and 2 poachers would soon learn what happened when they underestimated the wrong protector. The rain began to fall over Kiboko Wildlife Reserve. Not the kind that soaks the earth gently, but the kind that feels like warning drums beating from the sky. The poachers were gone, taken into custody by the rangers, but Peter wasn't celebrating. Neither was Rex. They stood silently near the calf's pen, watching it sleep restlessly. Peter crouched beside the German shepherd, resting a hand on his thick, damp fur. "You held your ground like a lion out there," he murmured. Rex didn't look at him. His eyes remained fixed on the calf. His entire posture was alert, protective, sensing something even Peter couldn't see. Naya approached, her clipboard tucked under her arm. "We've tried calling out to nearby herds through recorded matriarch vocalizations," she said. No response yet, but the drone picked up distant movement north of the plains, near the escarpment ridge. Peter stood. "Do you think that's the herd?" Nia hesitated. "It might be. If it is, they're moving away from their usual pattern. Bust, like something spooked them hard enough to root them completely." Peter looked back at the calf. "If she doesn't reunite with her herd soon, she won't survive out there. She needs her mother, or at least her family, to teach her the wild." Nia nodded. "She'll imprint on whoever cares for her in these next few days. And if it's not another elephant—" Rex let out a low whine, barely audible, but it cut into both of their thoughts. Peter blinked. Wait, what if she already has? That night the skies broke open, and the rain came hard. Thunder cracked through the sky, and the wind howled. It was chaos, branches snapping, distant roars echoing through the hills, the kind of night that animals feel deep in their bones. The calf panicked. She stood, turning in circles, letting out short, terrified cries. Peter rushed to the gate, trying to calm her, but it wasn't working. She didn't recognize his scent, not the way she needed to. But then Rex moved. Without command, without prompting. He slipped through the side gate and walked directly into the pen. The calf cried louder when she saw him, but instead of retreating, Rex simply sat, still, present. The rain poured down, lightning flashed. Through it all, he didn't budge. Slowly, the calf approached, one trembling step at a time. She lowered her head, leaned it gently against Rex's side, and stopped crying. Peter didn't move from the gate. He didn't say a word. Rex lifted his head slightly, made no sound, and let her rest against him. Not as a protector. Now, as something rarer in the wild, as family. The next morning, when the storm had passed and the sun peeked through the clouds, the research station buzzed with unexpected news. The drone team had spotted the herd, definitely the calf's group, gathering near the watering hole 7 kilometers northeast. They had doubled back. Peter knew what they had to do. Before noon, a team had assembled to prepare for transport, but the calf refused to board the crate. She screamed, stomped, backed away. It wasn't fear of transport, it was fear of separation. Peter looked at Naya. She had already anticipated his thoughts. "Let him go with her," she said softly. And so, a German shepherd, once trained for battlefield trauma, climbed into a reinforced wildlife transport truck beside an orphaned elephant calf, and they drove into the bush. Toward the wild, toward her family. The truck rolled to a stop at the edge of the open savanna. The herd had gathered, massive grey shapes moving slowly near the water. At the center stood a towering matriarch, her tusks curved, her eyes wise. Rex remained in the back of the transport, lying beside the calf. She hadn't taken her eyes off him since they left the outpost. When Peter unlatched the gate, the calf hesitated. She didn't trumpet. She didn't charge. She turned to Rex, nudging his shoulder softly, as if asking, "What do I do now?" Rex stepped forward, then stopped, letting her go first. It was her journey now. The calf climbed down slowly. Her steps wobbled, but she was determined. The moment her feet touched the ground, the herd noticed. A low rumble echoed across the plain. The matriarch lifted her head sharply, and the entire group went silent. Ears flared, trunks raised. They had smelled her, recognized her. Peter held his breath. The matriarch stepped forward, slow and regal, followed by two younger cows. The distance between them and the calf shrank, but the baby didn't move. She stood frozen, eyes darting between her family and the shepherd who still waited in the truck's shadow. For a heartbeat, everything hung suspended, wild and human, past and present, instinct and memory, all converging on this one fragile moment. Then the matriarch raised her trunk slowly, waving it in the air, deliberate, calm. Peter couldn't believe it. It was as if she understood, as if, in her vast, silent knowledge of survival and loss, she had seen what Rex had done and honored him for it. Rex stood on the edge of the truck bed, head tilted, eyes locked with hers. He didn't bark, didn't move, but his body relaxed just slightly, as if he understood too. The calf turned her head one last time, looking back at Rex. A brief glance, brief but filled with something neither Peter nor any scientist could name. Then she was gone, swallowed by the herd, safe again, in the only world she was ever meant to know. Peter closed the truck door and rubbed the back of his neck. "You ready to go home, buddy?" Rex jumped down, stretched his legs, and walked beside him. Without a sound, they climbed back into the truck, and Peter gave the steering wheel a soft pat before starting the engine. Back at the reserve, the radio buzzed with updates. The poachers had been handed over to federal authorities. More drone sweeps were scheduled for the week ahead, but none of that mattered to Peter tonight. Not now, because on a dirt road far from headlines and applause, a dog had done something extraordinary. He hadn't protected a species, he had protected a soul, and in doing so, he reminded the world that even in the wildest places, where survival often silences everything else, compassion still has a voice. Sometimes it just sounds like a shepherd's quiet breath in the middle of the storm.